APA is very much a joint formation between the coaching world and the psychological world. Myself and my co-founder, Siobhan Crosby, who is almost 20 years qualified as a psychotherapist, brought APA together to provide the best level of support we can to the mental health arena, because mental health, kind of the general understanding of mental health has really been shaped over the last 40 years by a very few number of people. And if we think back to 2019, wasn't really fit for purpose. We've now had the biggest amplifier and microscope put on mental health that we could have ever imagined. And it has amplified every outcome, that good, bad, and indifferent, in every walk of life for every single person on the planet. APA has worked tirelessly over the last 2.5 years since we launched to showcase a different way of engaging with mental health and linking that with businesses. And as Denise mentioned, the disadvantaged groups that have traditionally been excluded from a lot of the support systems, as much as they are heavily spoken about. So 4 of the things that we have been working on, and kind of major projects, just to give you a flavour of what the organisation is doing, is the World Sustainability Summit. This is the first sustainability summit of its kind that links sustainable mental health into the conversation and giving businesses long-term future planning systems that allow them to put positive mental health into action. Our 115 project with mental health change is putting psychological support right at the heart of the point of need when somebody reaches out to the NHS. And that's the first time that's been done in over 70 years of the NHS's existence. We designed an international framework for positive mental health, which is currently being reviewed by 30 governments around the world and is endorsed by a Nobel Prize nominee and a candidate for the UN Secretary General's post. So this is not small time stuff. This is what we're putting forward, is solutions that have brought together huge amounts of experience, knowledge, and understanding. And Bitimo, bag it, tag it, move on, is specifically designed to support the ex-military community, but also their person of significance. And it's the only program of its kind globally that brings those groups together. But what today is kind of needed for everybody, our psychological resilience, especially in the workplace, is dictated by every single individual in the workplace. We can have all of the best plans at a boardroom, but the resilience of the individuals within a business is dictated by their own experiences, their own resiliences. And if they don't have a sense of personal resilience, they're not going to be able to cope with whatever the business is dealing with, let alone what they're dealing with. APA works to support businesses to make sure that all of that growth that's required is from internal. There is no point in trying to load building blocks of resilience on top of people and top of businesses that haven't got the capacity to take that resilience. Otherwise, the tower just collapses. So I'm going to share with you, and just picking up very briefly on Gus's point a few moments ago, that effective planning is part of that process. Because in 22 years of researching the most successful companies and the most successful people, these 2 elements, planning and how we deal with things when they go wrong, are the 2 biggest drains on resilience within business. They are why people leave businesses. And that cost implication to a business can be frightening, especially when we're in a situation of complete unknown. How often, and we've heard it today, the sense of normal. Normal is a concept that gives us comfort. It justifies what we do in any given moment. because this is what we normally do. But how many times are we told we've got to get out of our comfort zones? Yet we hunger for a new normal. Normal does not exist. Normal is just what we do when a situation happens. And our resilience is to grow, not to change. Every one of us changes every single day. Our hair grows a bit longer, our eyelashes grow a little bit. We're all changing, but we're petrified of the unknown. Yet when we were toddlers, we didn't know how to walk. We were terrified of falling over. It held us back for a little while, and then we kind of got over it. And that's what resilience gives us. And in business, we have to understand that how to do the planning process to support our teams have built their own resilience within themselves. Planning first. This is what most companies do. They set a long-term point of success and go, you know what, that's where we've got to get to. And then they put stepping stones in place to get there. And invariably, just like was mentioned, the idea of the annual budget, as soon as you've signed it, it's out of date. So's your long-term success plan, because the world doesn't go on pause until you get there. And you can't plan for a world that you don't know. All you can do is deal with what is happening right there in the immediate. What happens is we take our staff through this long-term stepping stone. We're going to get there. That's where we've got to get to. And then everything else will be okay. And when we get through all of those steps, we've still got to jump. And invariably, it doesn't work. And what I discovered with the most successful companies in the world is that they do things differently. They create the environment for success by having a point of focus. We want the environment to be this way so that we get the success that we want. Whenever that happens, but every single day, their teams are working to what is the connection to that point of focus. What am I doing today that creates that environment? And that engagement touches on exactly what Gus was saying, because you don't have a long-term future point that becomes irrelevant. You have, what are we doing today to create the environment that we need to succeed? And that engagement means it's a lot easier to deal with things when they go wrong. Because Heath Ledger said it. He ad-libbed a line in the Batman movie. I can't remember the actual title of the Batman movie, but I'm sure most people will have seen it. If it's in the plan, everything's fine. It doesn't matter what the plan is. But as soon as something happens outside the plan, we all lose it. This is why having a point of focus means we can be more responsive, picking up on what Stephen was saying. And being responsive to what is happening now means businesses are able to flex as required. And they are then responsive to what their client needs rather than what their long-term success target was. Because the client doesn't want to wait for the long-term success to be delivered. They want a point of focus on what they need at that moment in time. What do we do when things go wrong? Quite often, businesses forget that for the vast majority, things go wrong because there are poor interactions between staff and clients. And that's because we're reactive, because we're stuck in a point of focus somewhere in the future that we haven't reached yet. It's not our fault we haven't reached it. I'm really sorry, but I'm doing my best to get over the stepping stones. Client doesn't care. Client just knows something's gone wrong. And as soon as you have that breakdown of how do we respond to that, we escalate the disconnect with the client. And what that does for the resilience of the member of staff is send it through the floor, because they can't deal with what's happened. So how do we get around it? There's no point in someone from the mental health sector going, yeah, look at this, guys, this is what's going wrong, and then not actually being able to give any support. If every single time there is an issue raised, every single stage in the process, the same process is used, your client gets consistency. They build trust that they're being listened to. that their issue is understood and that their perception is believed by an organization. You have staff, management, supervisors at every level that are able to support each other through that process when something's gone wrong. A vast majority of us have experienced complaints of all kinds, invariably with an agenda behind them. A lot of people at first point of contact go, oh, I'm really sorry, it's gone wrong, da, da, da. And then you've got company has to backtrack and go, well, hold on. Nothing's gone wrong here. Client's perception needs to be educated. And we try and defend, which just antagonizes. It belittles the interaction of the staff member at first point of contact. Resilience goes through the floor and they go, well, what's the point of me being here? I can't do anything. I keep getting it wrong because further up the chain, they do something different. If we thank everybody who brings to our attention that something's gone wrong, we change the dynamic of the conversation. And if that's done at first contact and it's done at every point of contact along the chain, we're building resilience into the business because it's consistent. We apologize for a client not being happy, not that something's gone wrong. They are the two things that the vast majority of clients want when they interact and something's gone wrong. But it's the two things that make the individual delivering that interaction feel better about being able to get control of the situation, which builds their resilience to be able to deal with it. Because once they've got that in place, then they can talk through, they can listen to what's being said without trying to defend it, and then they can act on the reality of what's being said. And once you can resolve that kind of scenario at every level, the resilience that you've given to your teams goes up. In fact, it goes through the roof because they can respond, they can flex to what's coming in, and they know that they're going to be supported because the same process is being used right across the board.